and somebody just played records, not tapes. We didn't have tapes. It was old scratched up records, and they'd spin the records and we would dance. We had to take our shoes off. But the clothes we wore when I was in high school, boy, when mini skirts were introduced, I'm sure our more conservative teachers just thought, well, what are we going to do about this? And I still thank the mini skirt to this day, because if it had not been for mini skirts, girls probably still wouldn't be wearing pants to school. When I was in 7th and 8th grade, we could not wear pants. We had to wear dresses. Boys wore pants. They had to have their shirt tucked in, and they had to have a belt. So a lot less self-expression in your style. You were pretty contained. But the mini skirt came around, and the way we measured our skirts was with our fingertips. And if you look where my fingertips are right now, that's how short we wore. And it was a shame, and I can't believe our parents let us out the house like that. And the colors were wild. The neon colors that have, well, I don't know if they're that popular this year, but they were real popular a couple of years ago. Those were the colors we did them in. And the tent dress, it was just a big dress. Stuck out, and we wore fishnet holes with them. Looked like a, fishnet. I think those are even making a comeback. There are some styles I hope I never have to repeat. Mini skirts won't, even though they did help us to, have pants in school, because the teacher said we can't have those girls walking around like that. So we were able to wear pants, but we didn't wear jeans right away. It was pantsuits. Well, the fabric that pantsuits were made out of were that double knit. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Yeah, and they had the little seams sewed down the front. And a pantsuit, you had to have either the jacket with the pants or the vest. So real gross. Bell bottoms.
Platform shoes.
Platform shoes. One of my favorite outfits, and I had made it myself, was a pair of bell-bottom pants, and they were navy blue and white checkered, and the bells were big, real big. And kids, I'm a short person. So when you put bells on a short person, and I had my clogs, we called them, they looked like Dutch shoes, and the cork heels were this high. And that's what we wore. The boys' hair, a lot of people talk about the kids in ponytails today, but hair got real long around my senior year. And that was the age, when I graduated from high school, that is where you saw the age of the hippie generation. Yeah, they don't call them that anymore, but it is a part of society that had a very, very big impact on history. And I'm sure one day in history you'll study about the hippie movement, and that's where drugs got real big. One of the headlines on one of these newspapers, we didn't have crack, there was marijuana, but it was heroin. Heroin was the big drug, and LSD. And we were just starting to hear about those things whenever I graduated from high school. And they haven't gone away, and they won't go away unless people just decide to stop using them. So we had a lot of problems, many of the same problems that kids today face, just different, a little different. Any other questions? Okay.
Anybody ever got killed, like in the senior year or something in school?
No, not anybody that I can remember. I remember when I was in elementary, we had an accident and a student was killed, but we didn't lose any of our classmates while we were in school.
Well, what happened?
There was a car accident. So, but we've lost some of our classmates since we graduated, and when a classmate dies and you have a real close class, you feel for that person and you miss them. Okay.
Let me see something. Did you ever like cheerleading, like you get embarrassed and fall or something like that?
Oh yeah, plenty of times. Look, Miss Becky laughing back there. I'm sure she could testify to that. When I was a cheerleader, we only had 6 cheerleaders. There are how many now? 10. And we went to cheerleading camps, but we didn't have as many clinics and things to go to. And we tried to do some stunts, but none of us were too acrobatic. And I was the smallest one on the squad, so I was always the one that had to climb up on the pyramids. Our pyramids weren't as high as they do today either. We could have never managed that. But yes, we did fall, and yes, we did get embarrassed. But you have to get up when something happens like that and shake it off and just, laugh at yourself and talk about get a reaction from people. But, the crowd gets pretty excited over somebody falling. Douglas,
Did y'all read y'all homecoming?
did we win for
For your senior
homecoming?
year.
Yes, we did. It's in the paper, and we played the Maryville Panthers for our homecoming, and the score was 22-14, I believe. Now, I'm sure we had some homecomings that we lost, but I know that one for sure we won.
Did they ever go to the playoffs while you were in school? While you were a cheerleader, did y'all have a playoff game?
We did play, I think it was a playoff game, but I'm not absolutely positive. We went to Morgan City for a game, and we played Central Catholic. And listen, they were supposed to be tops, and we were just little Basile, but they didn't know what school spirit can do. And I still say to this day that it's pride and spirit that won that game. And we won this team that we were not supposed to even to be able to touch. And it was the most exciting game.
Did Mr. Jimbo play football?
Yes, he did. He played football all of his high school years. His number was 66, and he was one of the key players on defense and offense.
And Richard is 66.
Richard is 66 too.
Oh, what position did he play?
Ethan might be able to answer that more accurately. He played linebacker and guard. Daddy. Well, I'm pretty sure it was linebacker and guard. I can remember one halftime show that Miss Bergeron, I know y'all know Miss Bergeron because she substituted. She was the band director then. One of the halftime shows had a little thing about each one of the football players, and Mr. Jimbo's was when Jim Bacon gets his man, and they played a funeral dirge, the band played. So. Football players got all the glory. Basketball players too. Basketball was real big when I was in high school. And again, that was with Coach Mack. He was the basketball coach. We had a lot of problems when we were in school. Things that you see today that you probably think, well, this could only be happening to us. But if you look back and you talk to people who've been through it, we went through the same things. What else?
Tell them about I'm sure you remember the senior tree and how the classes would.
We each had our designated area on the campus, and there were more trees. Naturally, whenever we had the old high school building, those had to be cut down. But the senior tree was the seniors' place to hang out, and everybody went out there for recess, and we sat around it, and we had our meetings around it, and we decorated it, and the tree was represented, and I think Mr. LeJeune captured that so beautifully whenever he wrote the alma mater. The tree represented the solidness of the school. It represented growth that students can occur, from a little seedling to a big, strong tree. And it represents still to me today school spirit and, the need for it and the strength and that a person can experience and a class can experience if they stick together. Oh, we had some field trips. Mrs. Totten brought us to Opelousas to a showing of Macbeth. But we did not take any big trips, no. And, in years past, and I'm sure some of the speakers who came earlier, seniors went on trips. They went to Arkansas, they went to Florida as a class. That doesn't happen anymore. I'm sure there are many, many reasons. There were special reasons for our class that we weren't able to do that. But we did take, small field trips. I think field trips are important. Maybe if y'all do the right kind of talking, y'all might be able to get some.
Did y'all have racism when you were in school?
Yeah, we have racism. Racism probably has always been there, Jody. And it will always be there. It's a very, very wrong thing, but just because it exists in the world does not mean that you have to have it inside of you. When I was in school, we had a lot of changes and a lot of racial tension. And, like I said, it still exists today, but you have to remember, and y'all are so young and this happened so long ago, some of you probably aren't even aware of it. We used to have separate schools. W.W. Stewart Elementary was W.W. Stewart High School, and the schools were segregated. Do y'all understand what that means? Okay. And then, you know, society was changing, and there was a need, a very true need, to have integration, where all students could be afforded the same opportunity to grow and to learn. And I was in school when that happened.
What grade were you in when we integrated?
I was in, Mr. LeJeune, I think it was the 8th grade. And like you, when we were in 7th and 8th grade, we were in the high school building. And there were some fights, you know, between the students. But the students we weren't the ones who had the biggest problem with integration. It was older generations of people who did. They were resisting the change. They didn't want it to happen. They were scared. People were frightened over what would happen. And really, you know, that's why we didn't have proms or any things like that, because the older people that were in charge of us felt like, you know, that would be a dangerous situation for us to be in. And, you know, we kept trying to tell them, we get along fine at school, everything would be okay, and I still think it probably would have been. But anytime you have change, people are scared, people resist it, and it's hard to accept. But all in all, you know, we got close, everybody got close. And we went through it, and schools are much, much better. I think people have the same opportunity to be the best that they can be. But you've got to take the opportunities you have, students. Don't just take them for granted. You have to take the opportunities. Your job right now is to be a student. That is your job. That's your responsibility. This community has put a school here for you. Your parents, your families pay taxes to run the school. And there are some kids, you know, I meet principals from all over the United States when I go to meetings. We are lucky to have Basile High School. Some of you may wish that you were in a rural big school. You might have different experiences that you could be taking part in. But a small school, in my opinion, is one of the best kinds of schools because everybody knows each other, and you should treat each other as one big family. Anything else? Okay.
Did y'all have more people in y'all school in here? Okay.
Did we have more students in the
Yeah.
school? The numbers were about the same, right about the same. Okay.
Do some of your classmates?
Many of them do. Many of my classmates went away to school or they moved away, but when we have our class reunions, it's like, I want to get back to Basile. Basile is our hometown. It's your community. And I can remember feeling like, I want to get out of this town. It is boring. There is nothing to do here. We don't have anything to do. But once you become an adult, you look back on experiences that you had as a youngster, and you're grateful for them. And I can only tell you that now. I can't convince you of that because that is something you have to experience for yourself. But the ones who don't live in Basile, many of them wish that they could be back here.
The ones that moved away, you still talk to them?
Sure. We communicate often. I have a classmate that is in Hong Kong right now. He's a, let's see, geological, something in the oil field. But yes, we do stay close. We've had our 10-year class reunion, we had a 15-year class reunion, and this summer we'll have a 20-year class reunion. So, and you know, time goes by faster than you think, boys and girls, and one day you'll be out of school before you know it. It's going to happen to you. So look ahead down the road. It's time for you to start thinking about what you want to be when you graduate from high school.
Did you know Mr. LeJeune when he was in school?
Yes, I did. He was younger than me.
And we're cousins too.
And we're cousins too, so yes. And he had as much spirit as he does now. Y'all are very fortunate to have him here.
Yeah. Well, you was caught at your other school, and like if you went to WW, what they would do to you
What do you mean?
before it was integrated?
If I would decide that I want to go to WW
No,
student,
if you went.
I don't know. I don't think that ever happened. That was there may have been students who would have wanted to, you know, from Stewart who would have wanted to come to Basile High School and vice versa. But as far as I know, Douglas, that never happened. Other questions? Do y'all think school is fun? Do y'all like it? Well, think about it. Think about what else you would have to do, and maybe you'll appreciate your school a little bit more. I hope that I said something to you that'll make a difference in your life, and in your school spirit
Well,
especially.
thank you, Christy. This is for you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Let's have a nice round of applause. Good class hour for those of you that are coming across from her. All day today I've been having speakers, alumni speakers, people who have graduated from Basile High School talking about their experience as students here and how their life as students here at Basile High have affected their own futures. But mostly they're going to share with you their experiences as students here. The speakers at this hour, we have two speakers, and we're fortunate this hour. My father, Marcus LeJeune, graduated in 1958, 57. And Miss Shirley Ledoux graduated in 1960. So they're going to tell you what school was like when they were here, what were the differences. And if you have any questions as they're talking, feel free to ask. I'm sure they'll be glad to answer your questions. So take it away.
I graduated in 1960 from Basile High School, and my husband graduated in 59. And I was trying to think of some things that really meant a lot to me, being a student at Basile High School, and I was listening. I listed quite a few things, and my husband was asked to speak, but I can't. I just never liked to speak in front of a class or anything. So the only reason I did in civics, I had to graduate with civics as a credit. So I listed my things, and he looked at it and he said, "Well, you forgot something on there." And I said, "Well, what was it?" He said, "You forgot that we met at Basile High School, that we married." I said, "Oh, I'll put that down." So, just to kind of tell you some of the most important things and some of the most memorable things. And some of my most important things I think I learned from Basile High. I'm not just talking about high school. I'm talking about from the beginning. Was I came from parents that did not have an education. My mother had a 4th grade education. My dad had none. Absolutely. They spoke mostly French. And I was the 4th of 4 children. My brothers and sisters went to high school, and they did not help me with any of my studies. In those days, you went to school, you did your work, and you came home. My mother worked hard. She had a lot of pride. She was a wonderful seamstress and a baker. She was raised with 6 girls, and my grandmother was a very highly moral woman. And none of my mother's sisters or she smoked or drank or anything. They liked to sew and bake and do a lot of things with their hands, and that was passed on to me. Cleanliness was next to godliness for my mom. They had pride in their home and their yards, and Daddy would work oil field, and he'd leave every morning like at 4 and come back after dark, so dirty that he'd take his clothes off outside. Mom would have to wash it in gas to clean it. And anyway, the thing I'm getting to is he works with people that mostly his boss people were educated people, college graduates. Mr. Evans was our neighbor. We worked with him for years, and Mr. Wall and them. And they respected my daddy, and I like to say he educated himself in the math, in the measurements, his own self. And he had pride in whatever he did it well, and they respected him for that because he worked hard. And it wasn't because we had money. And that's the thing that I'm trying to get to today. So many kids think I want to make a lot of money and I want to buy everything, and it doesn't earn you respect. Hard work does. Hard work and honesty. And have pride in yourself and what you do, that you can always not be ashamed of what you've done. I had a 2nd grade teacher that was wonderful. Her name is Howell. She was the teacher I remember a lot because she made us like ourselves. She made you think you were special, so you did do special things. She made you feel like you could and you would. I had wonderful high school teachers. I had Miss Todd that gave me all my communication skills mostly. But before her in 8th grade, we were separated into 2 classes, and I was an average student. I made B's and C's. I didn't excel that much in class because it wasn't my most important thing when I was in school, I'll be honest. My most important thing was to play basketball. It was my first love. It was my first love from the 5th grade. We were lucky in those days. We had coaches in the 5th grade. And I just really, that was my favorite thing. And so one of the most important memories for me in the fun times was the 8th grade. We won the parish tournament. And as a freshman, we had a really good basketball team. We had some outstanding players. And we went to semifinals in state. And we lost. We played girls that now when I look back, I know how some of them feel that was tall as my girls. They were like 6'2", and I was considered tall in those days, and I wasn't that tall. And one of my most other important memories was in the fun sector was clubs. I learned a lot of things through my clubs. I learned social skills, I guess you could say, to get along with people. We learned a little bit of speaking skills, but through the organizations by being officers. We learned through the yearbook staff. Just learning, you don't even know you're learning. It's not just what you learn in the classroom sitting down. I had a wonderful English and math teacher. I had Mr. Landry for math that taught me so much. My husband still says I can't get a concept of measurements of a room. When we went to build a house, he kept saying, well, honey, such and such by such and such feet. And I said, I can't picture it in my mind. And Miss Todd was a fabulous English teacher for us. I'm thankful today that I'm not a speaker, as you can see right now, but I like to put my thoughts on cards. So many times I'll write a card to a friend for a birthday or a sympathy card, and I like to be able to write something special on that card. Just the fact that we can read and write, and I love to read, I'm an avid reader. I think you can educate yourselves a lot just through. The teachers can't do all the work in the hours you're in the class. You need to read. You need to read the paper. Be able to talk with people about everything that's going on in the world. As I grew up, we didn't have a TV when I was young, and our summers were not filled with any activities. When we had summertime when I was young, it was summertime. There was nothing. There was no baseball, basketball, anything. You did exactly nothing. We walked to the library every day and get 10, 12 books and go home and read them all day. Even when I got in high school, we started having camps. I was a majorette from the time I was in the 5th grade till I graduated. I think one of the highlights of my life was we were appointed by our band director, and then as a junior and senior, we had to perform before the whole student body, and they voted. And I was re-elected, and I think that was a highlight for me. I was in various organizations, as I said. I enjoyed them all. I was on the homecoming court, and I enjoyed that. It was special for me, and I think it was really special for me when I made all district basketball. I had worked hard. We had a girl on our team that was, I think, a lot more talented than I was. But she was unfortunate, got hurt. And I think I worked hard at whatever I wanted. I wasn't maybe as smart or as talented as some, but I really worked hard for what I wanted. My parents have taught me that. And I'm trying to remember if there's anything else I need to tell you. I've rounded it off pretty well. See what, if I've touched all bases with y'all. I brought some, I don't know how long I've talked to you. I don't know if Mr. LeJeune has a lot of time left. I think that's about it. Oh, and I made lasting friends. that you grow up with Connor through all the years of schooling. I have 2 classmates that I still communicate with monthly or weekly. We don't have to see each other all the time, but we're still the closest of friends. And some in the classes before me and after me, and that goes on with you through life. Seems like they really, really know who you are and accept you the way you are, no matter what. And they know that you can depend on them, they can on you, and that you can share things and they still love you. I think that's about it. Is there any questions? Is there anything you would like to know? I brought the yearbooks kind of to let you see that one day you will be our age. You don't think you're going to ever be old and have kids. You know, I guess you're not serious, or you think, oh, I'll never look like that, I'll never be old. But you do get like that. And I hope that you'll trying to acquire what these teachers are trying to give to you, this knowledge. And it's got to put in some of the effort too. It means a lot. Thank you.
This is LeJeune. I graduated in 1957, and we started school back in, it took me 14 years to finish school. I was very independent. I didn't study much. And when I got to high school, I decided that I was going to play football, so I started passing. But before that, I didn't care. I moved up a lot. But we started school in the first grade. I'll never forget. In fact, I was talking to Jimmy Pelican this morning, and he said, don't forget to tell them about the cows. Now they got a fence around the school ground. When we started school, they should have had a fence then, because the cows would come to the school ground, and when we wrestle or play football or whatever we do outside, we'd come back in smelling. It's kind of hard to understand, but back then there was no stock law in town. That had cattle all over. Everybody had a milk cow in town, which today you wouldn't dream of seeing a cow in town. And they had horses. The old man would come pick up the trash over here. Mr. Cannonball's daddy, which is his grandpa. He'd come with a horse and a wagon, and he'd pick up we had a lot of cans. Everything would come in cans and they'd feed us at school. It was all commodity. And this old man would come. He was paid $5 or $10 a month to come pick up this stuff, which was like $500 a day. That's how much the thing has changed. But anyhow, going back, we started school in the first grade. I'll never forget, my first teacher was a lady by the name of Miss Gia. We got to school, most of us, we'd never seen that many kids in our life. We all lived in the country. And we'd see a lot of people, like when they were down the trash, the rice and stuff like that. But in there was a bunch of little kids, you know. And there was about 1/10 of them. I was lucky, I knew how to speak English. I learned to speak French. There was some old people that lived by the house, but my dad and mom would speak English to us. But I learned it with the cotton pickers and stuff in the cotton field. So I couldn't understand why some of these kids, they couldn't speak English at all. I'm talking about 80% of the kids that started. And so we were all mixed up, like the old lady that was teaching us, Miss Gia, she couldn't speak French at all. So man, you talk about a show. We had to interpret for the other kids. And I passed the first grade. In the second grade I failed because Miss Purdam was my teacher. So I stayed in her room another year. Then I got to the third grade, and we had the best teacher in the world, Miss Howell. She taught us our math, and this is how I made my living. But I realize it now. Back in that time, you don't realize that. But she said one thing about life was the 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic. But I didn't know it was arithmetic. I thought it was arithmetic. They always talk about the 3 R's that we didn't understand too well. But anyhow, she done a wonderful job with us, and that's how I made my living, was with math. Because when I got in high school, I finally decided what I wanted to do. But I went to work in the oil field when I was 15 years old, so I didn't worry too much about making good grades. I thought I was gonna work in the oil field and farm like my daddy and raise cattle, you know, that was gonna be it. So, I was in FFA, we had public speaking then, and, before that, I'd never get up and talk in front of a group of nothing, but it just so happened that FFA helped a lot of us because of public speaking, and then we learned parliamentary procedure with, later on in life, I got to use. I didn't realize I learned that in school, you know, just something that comes up. But, I was in 4-H. I learned quite a bit in 4-H also. We showed cattle. I went to Baton Rouge and grew with other kids. We met people from all over the place, which I still meet in life wherever I go. And like in the 6th, 7th grade, I kept the same teachers, I think, all through high school as they got their masters. The Perdaz and Miss Totten came up with us, and she was the greatest. She took us, she made us big plays. Those of us that had trouble passing, she always give us an extra point to take part in the play. And I always ended up being one of the leading actors in the play. And I was no actor. And she'd always give me the hardest part. I was in Big Henry when I was a senior. I'll never forget that. Jackie Burson had the second part, and Jackie was a genius. Well, I had to learn the part. She told me, she said, you're going to have trouble passing as a senior student unless you take this part. I said, yes, ma'am. Whatever you want, I'll do. And our coaches, we didn't have coaches. We had one coach, which was Louis Hanson, till I was a junior. Then Coach Robert Lee Manuel came over here. But Coach Hanson, he helped with the girls, and Miss Totten was the basketball coach. Who was your?
Mine was Coach Ernie, and Mr. Robert Lee.
Yeah, well, Robert Lee came, Ernie came after all that.
Yeah.
I forgot he was that much younger than you should.
No.
She was one of the greatest basketball players they had back then. And we had a couple other girls that were just like her. It was Colleen Stockwell, Barbara Evans, Beverly Bignell.
She was an all-state player. Colleen was, and so was Barbara Evans.
You know the Miss Colleen they're talking about, Miss Colleen who's the
Stop
A
it
with the
here.
special ed.
She was a high.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, she
I
was.
wish I had brought the yearbook to see how people, you just don't think that the same people you see all over.
You see, all these girls were our cheerleaders and all that when they went for district. But you were what, a freshman?
Yeah.
And so the boys, we got all together, we were their cheerleaders and stuff when they went to play ball.
That's a wonderful memory. I'm going to interrupt and say that since I was a player, I can remember so vividly. The whole student body saw us all on the Greyhound buses, and the boys were the real cheerleaders. They had never cheered. I mean, they got out there, 5 or 6, and they were the cheerleaders, and they came to the game and were the cheerleaders. And the alumni, all the school came and followed us. They were very supportive. They said that we had cheered for them all those years in football and everything, and they were going to do it for us.
Well, we didn't have no choice because Hanson was killing us.
Where did y'all play the tournament, the basketball tournament?
We didn't have a tournament. You just played at each other's schools.
Oh, so it
Walker
wasn't-
played over here when we played for semifinals.
So it was in Walker.
And Walker was the school we lost to, and they're still strong at basketball.
Daddy, tell us about how the cheerleaders were selected back then.
The student body would do it all.
Yeah.
They,
Farm.
we'd nominate them, and we'd vote on them as a student body. It was secret ballot.
Majorettes were done that way.
Like Mr. Jimmy Pelican and Rayford Granger, and there was a bunch of them.
Ronald
They were not
Nico.
Ronald Nico. They didn't want to be, but it was very simple. They wouldn't be cheerleaders. There was a big belt line waiting for them afterwards. And Van Orligo was one at one time.
Lawrence Basile.
Lawrence Bergeron, Ben Bignell, Wilfred Bignell.
They had some good boy cheerleaders in those days. They
We had
really
some of the
did.
best. That was from the 50s. You know, we started football in 1948. I can remember in 48 I was 9 years old. 9 or 10 years old when we started football. When little Manuel started playing football. Slim Manuel, he was one of the best athletes that come out of Basile back in that time. I remember going to the football game over here. It was in a car patch we had over there. There was also some old cotton rolls and stuff. We didn't six man. And we got to get out of school, and I think it cost a dime to go, man. That was something. But it was hot. There was no bleachers. We had to stand up along the sideline. And then in the 50s, we won state. And then within 2 or 3 years, we got a coach, I guess, in 49. That was Mr. Boyd was coaching before with no pay. And Coach Hansen come after the war, 49 or 50. I'm not sure. 48 or 49. Because in 50, Coach earned them one state. And then in 51, 52, we went for district. And in 53, we won state again. I was just lucky. In the 50s, I was a water boy. I was too small to play football. Then in 53, I was playing. I was in 8th grade, I think. And after that, we went for district every year, by district. And in 55, we lost to Appaloosa by district by 1 point. They beat us 13 to 12. Supposing I was holding, so we lost the ball game. We scored a point. No, 13 to 12. Yeah, that's what it was. And then in 56, Davidson didn't come back, and Olin Barone and all that bunch. The year after I graduated, our quarterback had got hurt my senior year, and they won district the next year. They went for Basile. And then I think Davidson then won it also in 59. And but we had a coach that taught you one thing, which helped me all my life. He said, when you're down in the mud, with your face down in the mud, he said, you always get back up. You never give up. You don't care how bad things are. And it helped me throughout my life. And a lot of our teachers told us that. Never give up. If you can't do, just keep studying. But I didn't listen too much on the study. It was all sports then, you know. Football was everything in Basile. And I never played basketball because my father gave me the choice. I could play football. And I ran track because we had to run track if you played football. And we worked on the farm. And all my friends were very good. Like if I had some crop to bring in or something, it was nothing for 15 or 16 boys to show up at my farm and help me break my corn, dig my sweet potatoes. So I could go to the track meet or whatever that was coming up, they would come help. And that was the greatest thing in the world, you know. And some of these boys that never dug potatoes, never broke corn, or hoed cotton, all this stuff is unbelievable, you know, how close you can be in that time. And some of these fellas I've never seen again, you know, since we got out of school. Some of them are some majors, some of them are some lawyers, some of them are some doctors. You know, they always say about our school in Basile was nothing. But if you could just go back and see the lieutenant colonel and the majors, the stuff that we have in the service, and the doctors and the lawyers, they was because they had good teachers. And that's, you know, you hate your teacher when you're in school. I know there was never a teacher that I liked because I was probably a kid that got the worst trouble that you could ever imagine. And they were trying to teach us a lesson, and it did help. I was on the city council a couple of times, and that I got to go meet the governors and the mayors of New Orleans and Shreveport. I was with some of the most important people in the state. I was with the congressmen. They helped us get grants. The sewage in Basile, I helped to get it. I helped to get the water system. But this was, and there was through meeting these people, we had to go to meetings with them, we had to talk, which I never was a public speaker. And it just come automatic whenever you have to get up and talk and tell them what you feel in life. And that happened a lot of times. I was a car salesman. I done that for 10 years of my life. I was raised, I thought I was going to work at oil field all my life. The year after I got married, the year Darryl was born. Mr. LeJeune, I'm sorry. The year he was born, the oil field finished. We were building the standard there. We built a big derricks, and the jackknife come up and took over the whole thing. So there was no more jobs. Slim Shirley closed his doors. We worked for Mars about 6 months. The jackknife took over. So my daddy told me one day, he said, we can't make a living on the farm, just on the farm. He said, you're going to have to go look for a job in town. So I ended up, I was a car salesman. And I ended up in I had a grocery store, a liquor store, and my life changed completely around. But if I wouldn't have had a high school education, I would have never got anywhere. Because you had to be you have to read and write. I didn't think I'd learn to read or write in school, which I did. But it was because of the teachers that stayed after us to keep learning. And y'all don't hesitate to keep trying. Never put your head down and say no. Thank you.
And beautiful floats. We worked for weeks on our floats, but we were seriously working. Our teachers with chaperones, however. In those days, kids were responsible in different areas. I think there's different areas. Like some of the years, the kids were a little bit more outgoing than other years, but the years that I was in high school, our classes were pretty well behaved. The girls, none of the girls drank. And we tried to smoke. We bought a pack of cigarettes and just die, you know, but that was the big thing of the year, you know, and you throw the whole thing away after trying one or two. But anyway, so we were pretty well behaved that the teachers didn't mind. You're missing out on a lot because of a few kids, or all of y'all think it's so important to, you know, just leave in the course and go drink and do the bad things. You're missing out on a lot because some of the kids don't want to behave. We had so many good times and good memories of, we'd get the old lumberyard. They'd let us use it. Every senior class got the lumberyard, and we looked forward to that. Only the seniors got it. And we spent every night there for 2 or 3 weeks. Teachers would come with us, but we didn't leave. We didn't run the roads, we didn't drink, we didn't smoke. We stayed there, we behaved, and we worked hard. We had beautiful floats, pictures of them. They were outstanding. We worked hard. They built, high things, a lot of carpenter work on it, you know. And I was amazed right after I think I was married. I think Kern was like a second child was like 2, 3, and 1 king something, and we had to build a float. And so my husband and I built it. It's an outstanding float, and I was amazed after years that I realized the kids don't know how to build floats anymore. You know, just like these big vegetable floats, we were doing some of the same kind of work they do. They were that pretty, and I realized that was some of the skills that had been lost. As I go at first, years ago, I went to Elephant Parade, and I noticed they were still keeping up the float there, or we had lost it, because I think they kind of losing it too. And it's because kids, you know, don't want to stay together and just behave for a while. You're losing out on some of the fun. That was one of the special memories. We had a big parade. We all wore evening gowns, of course. And that night we wore suits, and the Queen was known for, you know, mine was my best friend. Our Queen was my best friend. She was Marcella Bertrand, now Marcella Doise from Elton.
Was the Queen announced at the game, or was it?
No, she was beforehand. I found that practice kind of changed.
It's been about 6, 7 years now. I kind of knew that we had just announced it.
I had a
that
daughter
night.
that was Queen Kim, and she knew before.
Mhm.
I think it changed between Kim and Chris, and they're
Yeah.
only 2 years apart because my other daughter was also Queen, but she was announced the night of the game.
I
And
think
in some
Kim was
ways-
the last one. I think that Kim
Well,
was the last one to be announced
That was in
beforehand.
1982, I guess. And that was kind of, we thought maybe it would be more fun and exciting. But it was kind of exciting when you beforehand, you were honored all week, because after you announce that night, then it's over, you know. Homecoming's over, really, so. And that's about it.
The football team, who would choose them then? Who chooses them now?
Yeah.
Still the Queen. The team.
Yeah,
The team
it
picks
was
the
the
Queen.
football boys that chose.
Yeah.
But we had more alumni coming back. Alumni was honored by the school. They had special teas and receptions for them. And somebody asked a while back, why, or Mr. LeJeune mentioned, why don't more of the alumni come back for homecoming week? It's not supposed to just be a football game. And I told them, I think it's because the school doesn't honor them. They're not going to just come to a ball game. If they had maybe some of the old faculty here or some of the town people. Well, I guess why we're missing out as an FHA. We were students and we did. We did all the food and helped our FHA and learn to have parties or teas for everybody to come back. And it kind of makes your homecoming special because y'all don't think so now, but it makes more people at the game, excitement in the parades, you know. So that was part of the thing I remember about homecoming. We had a very special principal, Mr. Elton Brunet, that was really a good worker for all the areas of the school, not just academics, but sports and, you know, your
schools.
Yeah,
Yep, Mr. Brilliant, Mr. Elder Brilliant.
it's really a good person.
So we're calling Mr. Junior.
I know, but y'all supposed to do this.
Mr. Jeans was a year behind me in school, and you think we look different. I brought our yearbooks, and you can laugh. We was in some of them too. So,
How long was y'all's school day?
same time.
Same.
It was 8:30 to 3:30.
And you went to, what, 5, 6 classes a day, or how?
I don't remember. I had 4 Englishes in high school, that's all I can tell you, and I had 3 maths. We had typing, bookkeeping, shorthand. I forgot to say that, I went on to business at a trade school, and I loved it. And I didn't work out, but I used the business because we form, and I have to keep the books, and I do all the book work, and I'll never fail